DF cast this week for the Cookout Southern 500. I am joined by Ed Rouse this week. Dan Malin is on a mini vacation. So, what's up, Rouse? How's it going?
Another Malin vacation means another Ed Rouse, but I'm doing good, man. We got college football kicking off this weekend. The NFL is here. NASCAR's in the playoffs, so I'm a ecstatic little boy. Even though
I've already this morning. We're recording this Saturday afternoon after practice and qualifying. This morning, I watched a bonkers qualifying effort in Formula One for Monza that saw Ferrari absolutely bring it to Red Bull, and then I watched two EPL matches. See, I'm all over the place with sports, man. I can't even keep the term straight. Two EPL matches, and then I watched practice and qualifying at Darlington, which is where we find ourselves this weekend. Boy, this is going to be a tough test to start the playoffs. At practice, guys that were running 20 laps saw second and a half tire fall off between their 20th lap and their first lap. So tire management, like always, is going to be the name of the game here at Darlington. So that's good to see, to be honest, after a stretch of races here where tires haven't really mattered, right? They didn't matter at Daytona. They didn't matter on the road courses. Didn't really matter at Michigan. Didn't really matter at New Hampshire before that. So, it's good to see that tires matter this week.
Yeah, no, totally. It's going to be a very interesting race with a very interesting strategy, saving tires. There's going to be some tires being blown during the race. And it's just, I expect some cautions and a lot of interesting, again, strategy. You got to look and say who has the best strategic spotters and strategic crew here in this race to kind of pick out some of the best racers.
Yeah, so there's a lot of little tidbits here to go off of with what you just talked about. Cautions. In the last 12 races at Darlington, there have been an average of 8.5 cautions a race.
Dang.
Okay. Now, some of those are a little boosted because of stage racing, but if you figure there's only 2 cautions for the stages, that means there's an average of at least 6.5 natural yellows a race, which is a lot, to be honest. It comes from tires. We're going to see guys getting into the wall. Hell, Kyle Larson already got into the wall twice at practice. He came in from his first run of 5 laps, and the paint was missing from the right side wheel well already. We saw Darlington stripes in the Xfinity practice, which the race is now going on as we're recording this. So that's certainly part of it. We're going to see cars get loose as the track changes. It's going to be tight fighting for track positions. And in terms of crews, there was a change in the JGR camp this week. Ty Gibbs lost his pit crew to Christopher Bell because Ty Gibbs has had the best pit crew all season, but didn't make the playoffs. So they switched it to Christopher Bell, who is in the playoffs. That's going to be a big boost for C-Bell because we know he could have won a couple other races had his crew not screwed some stuff up late in the races. So that's a big switch. I don't think it's going to affect Ty Gibbs all that much, to be honest, because
it could affect Bell, though, right? You get one of the best pit crews in the entire season. You shave a few seconds. I mean, that could be something.
You would hope that it would help C-Bell. If they swap out pit crews and he's still making the same mistakes, then it's not the pit crew, it's him. So that's something certainly to watch because track position is going to be key.
Well, won't Bell have the number 1 pit too because he was the top qualifier, so he'll be in the number 1 pit box with Ty Gibbs' crew. That's
a huge advantage because the number 1 pit box here is huge. You can drive straight out of it, and you're almost never going to get caught for speeding unless you absolutely light up the tires. If Kyle Busch were there, he'd find a way to get caught for speeding, but it's 100%. Not. So that's going to be a huge role for sure. The cautions, and now we're talking about pit crew. So Christopher Bell should be in a good spot at a track with a lot of cautions. Pit crew should make a difference here. But The key thing we're looking at this week for strategy is who had long run speed. Because
Mm-hmm.
long runs here indicate you can manage your tires. Guys that can manage their tires often do very well at Darlington. So, in that regard, if we look back at practice, and it's not exactly a cut and dry situation because, again, they did the stupid group practices, and Group B was faster than Group A for qualifying times and whatnot. But if you look at 10 lap average, it's the same guy that led it as led 5 lap and 15 lap, and that's Austin Cindric. Coming out of nowhere here.
Ford, Penske, too.
It is a Ford and it is a Penske. So that's something to pay attention to. His teammate, your guy, Ryan Blaney,
Yes, sir.
was second to Austin Cindric in 10 lap average, and he was
Ford again.
third in 15 lap average. So these are things we want to look at. You also want to look at 20 lap average. And I might even sneak in there a 25 lap average in the playbook. Because despite all the cautions, there are a lot of laps here.
Cindric is going off 14th, and he's $6,100 on DraftKings.
He's going to be popular.
Yes.
Not as popular as Martin Truex Jr., though.
You think Truex will be the... Oh, yeah, because but his price...
He's starting like 30th.
31st, yeah. His price, though, he's the second highest behind Hamlin, who's starting second.
Okay. But...
I don't know if I can do 10-8. That's a lot.
I mean, it is. But he really only has to get back to like 15th to hit value.
That's true. Which I think he will.
I think he will,
even
too.
At 10-8. Yeah.
If we look at lap averages, which by the way, he ran 15 consecutive laps. Overall lap average, he's 8th fastest. If you look at 15 laps, the man is top 5 in lap average. Truex, that is.
So seeing what kind of lineup I could get him in if I do a Truex Cindric stack for like a GPP. Because Cindric, now you're still, even with that, you're what? Your average driver is 82, so you still got to kind of middle it out, right?
Yeah.
I don't like that 8-2. Like you got Bubba, Eric Jones, which I like.
I actually think Bubba's sneaky this week.
You could, okay, I'll play him. So now we're at 84. I could get Blaney for 86.
Well, you knew you were going to fit Blaney in there. That's not that.
Well,
not a shocker.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know. And then it's kind of like no man's land here to kind of fill out your last spot. So
Truex, you have who?
Truex, Bubba, Cindric, Eric Jones, because I like Eric Jones this week. Blaney
and Bubba.
And that was with 83, but it's right a cut where you're going to leave some money on the board, which is fine.
It's always advised to leave money on the board.
But you got Suarez,
you're in a weird
Bowman, McDowell, Gibbs, Stenhouse, no, Dylan.
I don't know. There are some interesting plays in that range, which is a good segue to you should read the playbook because there's some guys in that range that may or may not find their way into the playbook this week. But it's certainly an interesting slate to build because I think there's a bona fide cash build out there based on PD. I think there are some very chalky cash plays. Truex is one. I think Larson is another one. Although for me, he's not really a chalk cash play, and I'll have Larson? That in the playbook too.
Yeah, no.
I think a lot of people are going to play Chastain.
Yeah, 27.
Even though I'm not 100% sold on him.
Who's starting 5th? Because don't you have that little tidbit about whoever starts 5th?
I do. I am very torn about this because the guy who's starting 5th has a very good history here.
Oh, it's Keselowski. Oh,
it's Keselowski. He has a very good history here. He's had a very good history at similar tracks. Obviously, his teammate / car he owns has won 3 times in the last 5 races. Looked pretty good again in practice. But the driver who has started 5th in this race or at Darlington in the last 5 races averages the 28th highest score on DraftKings and the 33rd highest score on FanDuel in that span. regardless of who it's been. Now, I will say it was the same guy twice, but it's not been a very good run for guys starting 5th. So I will have to balance that and try to figure out how I'm putting that into the playbook, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but they keep on pricing Keselowski right with Buescher, don't they? It seems like every week.
They do. They kind of make you choose between
one of the
play
two.
both of them.
Yeah.
But it seems futile almost to play both RFK guys. But
he showed some speed in practice and qualifying.
He did. Now, how concerned are you with the Chevys this week?
Oh, a little.
They didn't have speed at practice or qualifying.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. Kyle Larson had speed and then screwed up his qualifying lap.
Yeah.
But it's the first time in 41 years at Darlington that there's not a Chevy starting in the top 10. So
I was just looking at that. I was like, is there even one in the top 10? There isn't.
Nope. The top 10 from qualifying was 7 Fords and 3 Toyotas, and the Toyotas beat all of the Fords for the first 3 spots in the grid.
Hamlin, yep. Blaney at 4th, though, so he's a top 4 Ford. Yeah, I mean, what is Chase Elliott the highest Chevy?
Yes.
At 13th? Wow.
I think so. Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure he's the highest starting.
Yeah, I'd be very concerned about the Chevys.
Not to mention that the guy who's leading the Chevy camp isn't in the playoffs. Oh no, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is starting 11th.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, right. He's a Chevy now. I keep on forgetting.
And he missed it by not that. I mean, he was pretty close.
In the race here in May, in the top 10, there were 4 Chevys in the top 10. Haley, Busch, Chase Elliott was 3rd, and William Byron first. So
yeah.
But I have a feeling because of this, a lot of people may be backing off the Chevys a little bit. So you could probably get some good value here in your GPPs for these big tournaments.
I think you can, because I mean Byron started 4th and won it.
Yep.
in I wouldn't say dominating fashion, but he looked pretty good most of the day. Justin Haley moved up well in that race, started 22nd, finished 8th. Kyle Busch moved up a handful of spots.
And last year, remember, Eric Jones won this race.
Yes.
Eric Jones won this race in a Chevy.
Yeah, he won this exact race a year ago. He was not in the playoffs, and that brings up an interesting point. So when we get to the playoffs, are you the kind of guy that focuses your DFS lineups on trying to get as many playoff drivers into your lineups as possible? Or are you just going for these guys give me DFS upside? I don't care if they're in the playoffs.
I kind of take the playoffs out of it at this point. When it gets to like the last race, the last couple, then you kind of have to, because the other cars kind of let them go. But we're at a point now where, especially, you want to be contrarian in GPPs, which is what I play. And to do that, you go against the playoff drivers, because the playoff drivers are going to be the highest drivers in every lineup build. So I kind of like to go against it. It kind of worked for me last year. Like we just talked about, Eric Jones won, right? What was it, like 4 straight races or 3 straight races where playoff driver won the actual race last year in the playoffs? So contrarian shows that it could win here. So I take playoff drivers out of it for these first 4 races in the playoffs.
I would agree. I would say that if you're torn between 2 guys and one of them's a playoff driver and one of them isn't, it depends on, again, the way you want to build. If you think that, well, the playoff guy is going to have more incentive to race harder and finish higher, and especially if it's torn between 2 teammates, right? Like if you're torn between Byron and Chase Elliott,
you take the playoff driver in that case.
You take the playoff driver because the team is going to put more resources behind the playoff driver. Now, I will say it's a little confusing with Chase, because
you can stack them, though, too, in some interesting little mini stacks with teams, because if Byron's up there and Elliott's up there, too, Elliott's going to try to stay up there to help Byron.
Right.
So only one driver can win the race, but I've seen stacking teammates, especially ones who are not in the playoffs, with the guy in the playoffs in this format, and GPP can win too.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that last week at Daytona, right? We saw there was a teammate who was, I don't remember who it was, but he was 3 laps down. Was it Denny?
It was Larson was down. Larson was
Larson
down.
was down,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he was 3 laps down. He was
It's in the
still up
top
in
10,
the top
like
5,
yeah.
pushing his teammate, right?
Yeah.
So, that does now it gets a little tricky with Chase because he's in the owners' playoffs because the 9 card made, which is valuable to the team because there's a lot of money behind that. But yeah, I think it's wise at this stage to take the playoffs out of it because there's 16 guys. It's the first playoff race. Anything can happen, right? Like when you get down to the last 3 races, especially Martinsville, definitely Phoenix, it's good to try to get a couple, stack some playoff guys because especially the dudes on the bubble, because they're going to be racing pretty hard for stuff. But this week, we can kind of pay no mind to that. So I guess turning a corner here, how are you approaching position differential this week? Because Darlington can be a little weird with that.
Yeah, kind of a mix because of the issue with the tires. Obviously, a driver like Truex, a driver like Larson's, William Byron, who's two of the favorites to win the championship this year, can easily get up the field. So you kind of want to have them in play. But I'm kind of doing kind of a mix because a lot of these guys I like in the top 5 can also give you dominator points. I wouldn't be surprised if Hamlin was a dominator this whole like you know what I mean? Like you got to pay attention to these guys too. You can't just only go PD, especially when you have a lot of high priced guys with PD upside. So I really like Hamlin because you're right. Truex is going to be the guy everyone's going to put in their lineups. But what if instead of Truex, go to Hamlin and he dominates this race?
I mean, he's a 3-time winner here in the last 12 races.
And no one's talking about it. Like they're going to play Truex just because they're like, oh, the PD. But I don't know. So I'm going to kind of go towards a little PD in there because you need it. But I think I'm kind of thinking, especially here, it could be a dominator race type of play here.
I would agree. There are 367 laps in this race because remember, Darlington is 1.366 miles per lap. It's an odd number, I know. Technically, it's an even number, but whatever. It is a lot of laps in this race, so you can rack up some laps led, some fastest laps quite a bit. Now, for those of you who love to get win equity in their DFS lineups, you love to have the winner. It's not always required to have the winner in a winning lineup. But in the last 12 races here, nobody has won starting outside the top 16. And in 8 of those 12, nobody has won. Like 8 of the 12 winners have started P9 or closer. So if you want win equity, you're looking at dudes who are starting in the top 10. It's also not a track that favors a lot of one-off winners, right? There's not a lot of chaos that produces one-off winners here. Correct. William Byron was a new winner here in the spring, but I think we can all agree that he's fast enough to not be counted as a one-off guy.
He's the championship favorite at this point now.
He's won 5 races this year. He's won on short tracks, intermediates, road courses, plate races. Denny Hamlin has 3 wins here in that span. Kevin Harvick has a couple of wins.
I like
Truex has a couple of wins. Eric Jones has a couple of wins. That might be the like one-off that's not a one-off, right? The one-hit wonder that's actually a 2-hit.
Then he's not a one-hit wonder, man. He moved on. He graduated.
He won twice here. So it's not like you're gonna go and get, not a lot of young guys win here. This is a track that takes a veteran status basically to win. It's not like the track knows who it is, but it's just like the way you have to race this track and manage your car and manage your team throughout the race lends itself to more veteran guys. So if you're seeing, Christopher Bell's on the pole, maybe he's veteran enough to pull it off. He's got the pit crew to do it. He's got the pit stall to do it. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like Ty Gibbs isn't going to show up and magically win this race.
No, I would not. I would be so surprised if that happened. Like, I would wear the craziest outfit on the next podcast if that. Like, I would go naked. Like, it's not going to happen. Yeah. You don't want to see that either, anyways. So pray for non-Gibbs winning there, everybody. But yeah, because Christopher Bell right now is the eighth in odds to win, even though he's starting on the pole. And you got Kyle Larson, Truex, Hamlin, Byron, Chastain, and Busch ahead of him. So I kind of agree with you there. Bell he's in a great spot. And he's going to get some laps land. He's going to, but I don't know. I just maybe fade him. I just don't see him pulling this out as a winner, even from the pole spot. And just what Vegas is telling me right now, I'm a little scared of Bell now, even though he has the new pit crew and the pit spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean so Logano won from the pole here in May of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But if we remember, he kind of had to run over.
So a normal race for Logano.
Okay. But yeah, exactly. But outside of that, you have to go all the way back to 2014 for Kevin Harvick to have won on the pole. So the pole sitter doesn't necessarily win here that often. So
where would he have to stay to just hold value? Like, because he's 9,400. So even DraftKings doesn't like him. I'm just trying to see it because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be off of him.
For C-Bell, that is?
Yeah. Is there any way to get some sort of contrarian value to have him in your lineups?
So 9,400 for 5x value, he'd have to nab 45.2 points.
Mm-hmm.
So if he finishes, let's see, he's starting on the pole. That should give him 42.
Yes. So
finish points, 45 finish points. So
that's if he finishes first.
Yeah, if he finishes first,
he makes value
and gets one lap led, he hits value.
Jesus.
But for every spot, let's say he finishes third, well, he's going to lose 4 finish points plus lose 2 in PD, so there's 6 points. So you're going to need a handful of fastest laps and laps led to make up for every spot he drops. So he is a GPP only play because there's no way he can finish better than where he's starting, and he's got some fast guys behind him.
And he's going to be really low owned, like really low owned.
I would presume he's a little lower than we normally see.
Yeah.
So at that point, do you have leverage on the play? Because if he shows up and does better than people think, and you're higher than the field on him, then it comes in handy.
Correct.
If you're higher than the field and he doesn't do what you're hoping he does, then you get bit.
You know me, I'm going to put in one lineup with Bell in it now. I have to just to see what happens. But yeah, the value is not there at all. He's going to be low owned, but if he somehow starts first, dominates this race, wins the race, and he's 8% owned or to 10% owned, huge value for your GPP lineups. Right.
So the most interesting guy, I think, above at the 10K range on DK and highly priced on FanDuel might be Kyle Busch.
Yeah, he's starting 11th, so there is some PD there.
Right, but the thing that concerns me is if he finishes 5th, he still has to get fastest laps and or laps led to get you. Because on DK, you need 50 points to get 5x.
Correct.
And in a race like this, you need at least 5x. He's starting 11th, which means in finish points, that's 32, right? So if he finishes 5th, you're talking that's 40 finish points plus 6 for the PD. That's 46. You're still 4 points shy of value. So that's not a ton of. That's like 10 fastest laps, which he could do if he's moving up 6 spots.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like you need his practice speed to show up where he ran about 5th or 6th best in the field. And you need everything to go right.
Mm-hmm.
And you need some guys to fall backwards. and you need him to get fastest laps or laps led, which is all possible. But you're talking about a ceiling outcome versus a floor, right? Yep. So that's kind of where things get tricky with value, and where we have to kind of be careful with who we're playing. Now, is there a chance that he is the lowest played dude between Denny Hamlin and C. Bell in that price range? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. No, I think well, okay. Of the 10,000, everybody and their mom.com is going to be playing Byron, Larson, and Truex. That's going to be their highest paid guy. Hamlin and Kyle are literally the two just contrarian. Can I get value from them to win some GPP tournaments?
Right.
And then you have Harvick at 7, who will be kind of high owned. Chastain is going to be really high owned, and then Bell. So I think Bell, Harvick, Busch, and Hamlin go into play with what you said. What nobody who started after 16th is it won this race and how long? Like, you got to start looking at that.
To Reagan Smith winning it in 2011 for anybody outside the top 16 to have won, because he started 23rd.
So I think I'm gonna have some Bell. I'm gonna have some Busch. I'm gonna have some Hamlin. I'm gonna have some Harvick in my builds. Just go a little contrarian, because that's what history tells me, what everything tells me is I can see where the public's going to go on their lineups and who they're going to play. It's because everyone loves PD, right? They love they automatically they love it. But this track doesn't love PD. So
not a lot, no.
I'm playing the track here.
In fact, playing... let me see. In the last 5 races, now granted, some of those were 400 milers and some of them are 500 milers, but in general, you're getting 6.5 drivers who move up double-digit spots a race.
It's nothing.
So it's decent, but not great. Out of a 36-car field, you're talking about 1/6 of them move up double-digit spots.
Oh, double-digit spots. Sorry, I missed that. I was like, wow.
12 of them move up at least 6 spots a race.
Okay.
So it's decent.
Decent, yeah.
But when you're talking about top 10 finishers, less than half of the top 10 has started outside the top 12.
There you go. So
you can move up, but cracking the top 10 is kind of the glass ceiling, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go very, very contrarian this week.
And in terms of laps led dominators, 1.2 drivers a race over the last 5 have led 100 or more laps in a race. You get basically one guy a race that leads more than 100, and you'll get 2 or so that lead 50 or more.
If you can find that guy who hits the 100, that's what you need to do.
Yeah, and let me see if I can.
Which Bell, man? Bell could be. I'm off it. I'm on him.
By the way, it was Truex on the pole who led 145 laps in the spring before he had an issue.
Correct. Okay.
It was.
And Byron won that race, right? Yeah.
See, this is where it gets tricky, because Kyle Busch led 155 laps in the fall race last year, starting 5th before finishing 30th.
The 5th spot.
Joey Logano led 107 laps from the pole and won it when he ran over people to get back to the lead.
Again, that's a normal race for Joey Logano.
Right. In the 4th race back, and I'll make this quick, we had Hamlin and Larson both lead 140 plus laps. That's the only one where you've had 200 lap. And the 5th race ago, you had Truex lead 248 of 293 laps, starting 4th. So he just annihilated people, and if you didn't have him, there's no shot you were going to win. But
there you go, dominator. So find the dominator, win your GPPs. It's that easy.
Yep, sort of. For more details, read this week's playbook. It'll be out Saturday evening. We'll have projections, everything else out. But other than that, enjoy the Cookout Southern 500, and good.